Your worship, I would like to add an agenda item to the in-camera agenda.
Yep.
1.3, an in-camera item.
8.3.
8.3, section, items pertaining to FOIP, section 23, 1B, please.
All right, thank you very much. I'll add that. Anything else? Administration?
Yes, Your Worship. We just want to change a couple things around on the agenda. If we could please move item 6.4
Yep.
to 6.6,
Yes,
and then move 6.5 up and 6.6
you
up.
bet.
Thank you.
Can I please have a motion to confirm the agenda? So moved. Councillor Cox moves. All in favor? All right, motion carried. No delegations. Confirmation of the minutes. 4.1, adoption of the January 15th, 2020 Committee of the Whole minutes. Councillor Bauer.
Your worship, I move that council adopt the January 15th, 2020 Committee of the Whole minutes as presented, please.
Motion on the floor. All in favor? Motion passed. 4.2, adoption of the February 12th, 2020 Committee of the Whole minutes. Nobody? Councillor Montgomery.
I will move that we accept those minutes as presented.
All in favor? Motion passed. No unfinished business. 6.1, Sports Center 2019 Year-End Report. Mr. Mark Pretzlaff.
Hello, Your Worship and Council. Have if councils would wish, but they've had this report for a little bit, so if there's any questions or if you wish to proceed with a presentation, please let me know how you'd like me to proceed. Okay, thank you, Your Worship. Obviously, we're starting our second year of operations within the Sports Center. This slide here illustrates some of the recreational programming that we started in 2019. These are some of the 3 classes that we ran, and this illustrates both the times, the sessions offered, as well as some of the prices and the average number of participants in each of these sessions. A couple of these have been very successful, and we look to continue them into 2020. Here's just some illustrations of each of the respective classes and some of the participants. I know this one is a little bit confusing, but it tries to illustrate the utilization of the facility. The green section here talks about miscellaneous facility rentals, things that aren't either the gymnasiums or the artificial turf. So really we're talking about the concrete pad as well as any of the meeting rooms that we utilize for am I hearing something? Okay, that we're utilizing for birthday parties and things like in that capacity. Here's another illustration of the facilities. If council can recall or remember that we actually didn't have the field open until approximately May till December. We had the rental turf from Chestermere. So many of the user groups that utilize the field now had already made other arrangements, but here you can illustrate, see the number of hours utilized. Obviously, there's a lot of use from soccer that's picked up in the fall, as well as from the school board throughout the year. Here's this slide illustrates, excuse me, the regular user groups that are utilizing the facility, as well as some of the potential new users in 2020 that have already started utilizing the facility, and obviously we'll have some carryover from our previous user groups. This slide is specifically regarding Golden Hill School Division and their utilization of the facility, both from their tournament uses, their academy, as well as any non George Freeman School usage, both gyms, whether it's a tournament or an event like we had for Rogers Hometown Hockey. This slide illustrates the membership sales. As you can see, we obviously had a big spike when the facility opened up, a little bit of a lull during the summer months, and then picked up back in September. Our track membership sales specifically, and you can see the utilization and the most popular type of purchases that we have there. We try to make it affordable for a variety of our users, and you can see the popularity of the 10 pass and the 1 month memberships. This is our general membership sales, and again, you can see the breakdown for 2019. One of the most successful elements of the facility is the drop-in component of it. If you've ever interested in seeing how busy it is on a Friday or a Saturday night, you can just see that pretty much every square foot of the facility is being utilized by somebody, whether it's badminton or something going on the concrete pad. The gymnasiums are being used, and obviously the athletic field. We've seen some pretty busy times in the gymnasiums with drop-in basketball and things like that. And our programming, we're looking at one of our youth programmings nights in 2020 specifically for a basketball youth drop-in. And some of our facility enhancement for 2020, things that we've already purchased or are looking to augment to increase the utilization or to ensure that our user groups are receiving great value for their dollars in the facility.
Councillor Montgomery.
Yeah, so I was wondering, first of all, if we've determined whether it's more economical for us to provide programming by hiring a contractor or by just renting the space out to contractors. Just based on looking at some of the numbers that you guys presented as far as the number of people on average in a kickboxing class versus what you guys are spending on the instructor versus what you could rent the space out for to somebody that would so and then I guess because it seems like those aren't exactly we're not going to be it seems to me it'd be, correct me if I'm wrong, cheaper or let's say more economical for us to rent the space out than it would be to program it ourselves based on these numbers.
Through the chair, we're actually doing a combination of both right now.
Yeah.
That's actually spilling into 2020 with some of our new enhancements. We're partnering with a group from Calgary Sport Ball to bring in youth programming. In our research with other, not similar facilities, but other community associations, some of them do it at either way. They contract out rental space to sports ball, and they come in and program it and utilize it just as a facility rental. In other elements, they also come in and partner with the group, and where the association does all the marketing and communication and administrative work on that. So we're still exploring what's the best option for us. Sometimes, I think in one of our classes, we actually have a casual employee who teaches that. So in some elements where we can contract it out is our preference to do that way, just because our staff aren't properly educated or have the required training to teach. But when we do have that component, that's how we put on our programming. So this is year one, and so as we've found out halfway through the year, or some programs are very strong, whether it's the kickboxing and things like that, where other programs weren't as successful. And obviously the market will dictate how we program the space. And again, we'll obviously try to minimize the cost or maximize the revenue.
Yeah, because I believe for let's say kickboxing, for example, the number was it 8 people or 10 people on average? But it worked out to on average about $104 per class is what the revenue in was, and then if you minus whatever we're paying the instructor plus whatever we're paying for marketing and everything else, it might be more economical for us to just rent the space out for even a discounted rate, to somebody that would then it's their risk to fill it or not. And then I guess, and I guess like for the kickboxing, for example, like what is the maximum class of like size class we could possibly do?
We haven't reached it yet.
Yeah.
The max for that one is 20, I believe.
20?
Getting close to that.
Okay.
For the senior size class, just given the nature of the class, that one is the capacity of 12. And that we have reached a maximum for the past 2 sessions, I believe.
Nice.
And we even have a wait list for that one.
Okay.
Through the chair, I think obviously we're trying to explore every avenue. Sometimes those instructors aren't available within our community. Zumba is another example where we hire a contractor to come out from Calgary to bring on that type of programming because we don't have someone within our community willing to offer that.
I might know someone for that.
That'd be great. That would be great. So, yeah, and ultimately, it's our desire to ensure we maximize the revenue opportunities for the facility, and whether we run the programming ourselves or contract somebody out, we'll go whatever the best way for the facility.
Do we discount, like if somebody wants to, let's say, like I wanted to put on a Zumba class and I'm like, hey, I'll buy 10 chunks of time. Will you give the person a discount if they wanted to buy, say, 10 chunks?
At this time, we don't offer any discounted pricing, no different than we don't for ice rentals or any other our facility bookings.
Okay, well, and the reason why I'm suggesting that, because like I said, like if we're basically, gonna be making less by the time we're done marketing and paying somebody else to do it, than if we just gave somebody a discounted rate, it would be worthwhile partnering with people in the community to,
Can I piggyback on this, though?
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. But I do like the fact that we're trying to generate business. Like some of those,
Yeah.
some of those spaces, we wouldn't get rentals anyway, so it's wasted. Like, I would rather see it filled, and I really think that, it's our first year. I really think that once you get the following, and like I said, it's a trial and error until we figure it out. And I really like the fact that we're going in that positive way and trying to create our own revenue.
Yeah, I would just say, don't be afraid to, let's say, make a deal to, to get the,
Just better careful with that.
yeah, so, but, yeah, keep up the good work, though.
Thank you.
Are you done?
Sure.
Councilor Bauer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Mark, for your report with Tracy and Marcy helping out. I really appreciate it. It's really nice to see in 1 year some statistics for how well the Sports Center has been going along. And I, for one, have taken part in some of those kickboxing classes and stuff and really, really enjoyed them. But yeah, they are small and they're just catching on. It really has to be, there has to be a word of mouth thing that happens too in addition because it's hard to get people up at 8 or 9 in the morning on a Saturday, me included. So Mark, my question for you is, going forward, what type of resources are you looking to get feedback from within Alberta or other communities? What direction do you think we should move forward in the next quarter?
Excuse me. Through the chair, we're continuing to do our research as to those innovative new programs, recreation programs, to see what's out there. Group fitness is still one of the most successful elements out there, whether it's a spin class or kickboxing and things like that. Sport ball is another one that we're excited to bring to our community. We've had a lot of feedback in terms of programming for, I wouldn't say youth, but toddlers and young children. So we're trying to engage other community associations and other rec facilities to see what type of programming or what elements that they have, and we're trying to bring them to our community. Obviously, the research or the resources, I think we're adequately prepared. We're very fortunate that the facility offers a lot of flexibility and freedom in terms of how we can program the different spaces, and even that we're making use of the concrete pad. We have a regular rental group that loves the space and loves that there's a concrete pad. And I'll be honest, I always thought that was going to be a lost leader for us until we had made a decision what's best for us. But
You're talking about the rollerblading?
they're talking about exactly the roller
Yeah,
derby type
derby.
of thing, right? So I think that's what's kudos goes to Marcy there, and for finding those type of groups. And, I think the success of the facility is spread now into Calgary. You can see some of our bookings as well, that we're getting those groups from Calgary into our community, which I think is very strong and showcases both the facility as well as the community. So I think, as Councillor Corbeil indicated, it is year one for us. It's still very much a trial. We really technically didn't open the majority of the facility until May, June, and now to have a full year under our belt, we're looking forward to seeing what the staff and what the facility can really bring to the town.
Great. And then I'm just wondering, in terms of a day-to-day operation, do you find that there are certain times of the day that you are not filling the space?
I think the struggles within the facility are no different than any other rec center. You're going to have ebbs and flows based on, at 4 o'clock, the facility starts to get busy, no different than the arena or the pool. I think we're very fortunate that the partnership with Golden Hills makes use of that space on days when they can't get outside. And we're now starting to engage some user groups that we had thought were gone. Our pickleball users are starting to pick up and actually seeing some additional bookings where we didn't really have them in 2019. So ultimately, I think those struggles exist for every rec center. The daytime program is a little bit of a challenge, but I think the uniqueness of the facility, partnering with Golden Hills, allows it to be a lot busier than it would be if it was just a standalone entity. So, and then on the weekends and nights, I think the facility speaks for itself. It's busy from open till close, and we're looking at possibly extending some hours to get some of the people who want to get up early, not myself included, to get a walk-in or a run-in on the track. So those are the type of elements that Marcy and her team are bringing towards into 2020.
I absolutely love that you have those two windows on the northwest corner that you can see in, and you can always see if somebody's using it while you're driving by. So it's just a nice reminder that, hey, this building is here, but come on in. There's stuff happening here, and it's really fun. So kudos to you and your team for working hard on this report, and I look forward to more information coming in the months ahead. Thank you.
Very good. Councillor Sobel.
Thank you, Your Worship. My apologies for my tardiness. If this has been covered already, then I apologize. One of the questions I had that I've received is in regards to the persons who have invested in the Hall of Fame.
The donors wall?
The donors wall, yes.
Yeah.
So can you, has that been covered already, first of all? Because
No, it has not.
I won't ask again, but
Yeah,
if,
so through the chair, our initial plan for the donors wall was on as you walk right in, it was there, but based on the popularity and the busyness of the facility and the need to purchase more boot racks for when we have tournaments and regular events, we made a decision to reuse that space and add additional boot rack storage for shoes and that sort of things. And now we're in the process of moving the donor wall to a different location, and so we're just in the process of gathering a new design based on the new space that we've allocated for the donors wall. So unfortunately, it's one of those delays that we saw within our first year, but I think the good news of it is we had to do this because the increased demand on the space. We've just been seeing that more and more people are utilizing the facility, and if you ever walk there on a weekend when it's kind of cold and yucky out there, you're literally tripping over boots. So,
absolutely. So I'm not exactly sure when the date the expiry date for investing in that was, but I believe it was at least 6 months ago. So is that still available to constituents?
we'll have to, you're right, through the chair, is that we did initially have it closed around April, I think, of 2019. But obviously our plans have changed, and so I think once we get our new design, we can figure out exactly the number of spaces we have available now, considering the new location, then we can reopen it back to the public to sell the donor wall again.
So I can assume therefore that there's going to be something placed on social media, et cetera, with some kind of explanation as to what, because I have had inquiries as to what's going on with it and
Yes,
in view of the fact that it was closed so long ago.
Yeah, it's our intention, as soon as we get that design, to communicate that back out to the public, to give them an update of where we're at, and then what the new design is, to see if we can maximize those donor wall opportunities.
Great. And my second question, Your Worship, if I may, is in regards to naming of the field house on the large field house. Where are we with that, or has that been covered as well?
It has not, and through the chair, I believe there's final conversations with a announcement being set for, I think, June, I believe.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Hi,
Hello.
how are you? I'm good. I promise. Are there any other questions? Deputy Mayor Corbio?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to reiterate again, like I have really been pushing a more business, we're actually trying to seek out business to come, and I really like that drive, and I really like that change of direction, because we're used to just, waiting and rentals come to us. The arena is a big one, right? Where I know that we might not see the big profits and stuff like that, but we're actually getting people into the facility, and you can't even say the spin-off said that's getting. I think that was all I had to, there's something else, but I'd forgot. Thank you.
Yeah, I think just through the chair, I think our goal is to maximize the revenue opportunities within the facility, minimize any of our overhead and expenses on a day-to-day business, and again, provide quality recreation programming and space to the community at an affordable dollar.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Corbeil. And if there are no other questions, everybody's good? Thank you, Mark, for your presentation and your answering of the questions. Oh, and you're speaking on hometown hockey,
But
but
can I make a
do
motion
we
quick?
need a motion to go into committee of the whole? Sorry. So Deputy Mayor Corbeil.
I move we go into committee of the whole.
Thank you. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? And we're now in committee of the whole. And Mark, welcome back. You look different.
Yes, Your Worship,
Yes.
I anticipated
Boyish.
I anticipated winter beard being over, but clearly I didn't. Didn't look at the forecast, and so I apologize for my appearance considering the most recent weather forecast.
Well, thank you. And you're presenting now on Rogers Hometown Hockey?
Ideally,
Thank you.
It seems like it's a slow loading file, but council's had this report for a little bit, and I do have a presentation if it ever is prepared to open. But if not, I can proceed with questions from council. If maybe while it's loading, if council has any questions.
Where are you from?
Through the
Tell us a
chair,
little bit about yourself.
I grew up on a small farm. And yeah, go Oilers.
What? I used to like you.
Loyalties die hard here. Yeah, I just set myself up to fail.
At least you know.
Oh, sorry. Deputy Mayor Corbeil.
Thank you, Your Worship. I want to say thank you very much to you and Lauren for all the hard work for Rogers Hometown Hockey. I know it was very much enjoyed by everybody who attended, and not even just with the charity hockey game. I think it just was a huge benefit for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Corbeil. And we're ready?
If you
It
are,
looks like we are.
Yes, we are.
Perfect.
We're finally loaded. So, obviously, we're just here to wrap up Rogers Hometown Hockey. This event began in December, which seems like a very long time ago, with a school assembly. And speaking of the successes of the sports center, the Rogers School Assembly started on Friday before the event. And normally in other communities, they only have one school that's able to participate in this school assembly, and they do a contest for it. But the uniqueness of the of the sports center and the opportunity that it provides us, we were able to have a number of schools in attendance to increase that opportunity to more than just one members of our community. So with over 900 students in attendance, we're quite, obviously you can see there it was quite the show. The technical problems continue here, so whether it's, here we go. The actual, next we had our kickoff downtown with the chambers, and we were very pleased on how this came forth, and our thoughts and our thanks go out to the members of the downtown community and the chamber for organizing this, and there are some of the highlights that the community came together to kind of serve as a kickoff for the event, and with free breakfasts and lunch provided by a couple of companies as well. It just really kind of, literally kicked off the event in a really good manner here. So, as a part of the event, we obviously had the charity hockey game. Over almost $1,500 was raised through the 50-50. We had a great intermission show. I apologize. I didn't catch it till now. Yeah, somebody one of the staff put it together, so I apologize to. It happens occasionally, Your Worship. So. Yes, ultimately, I think that the event was a great success. In talking with Rogers and preparing for this, the report talks about it in some detail, and I think it's the next slide or two. But we had some of the highest social media for the year, some of the highest attendance for the year. They estimated over. We would anticipate, here speaks to some of the media values of the report, the likes, the Facebook shares and things like that. Our numbers, according to Rogers, they estimated were comparable to much larger communities than what Strathmore has to bring. I think that speaks volumes for, one, the weather, which was a big factor, but really to the community. We were able to engage a lot of our user groups, a lot of members of the community, and the buy-in from the town itself, whether it's the businesses and even every department that associated with the event, really made the element made the event go really easy. And Lauren, if you can kind of recall. I think Rogers anticipated we would have approximately 5,000 to 6,000 people in attendance. We had, I think, around 8,000. That's their average for a community of our size. They base that on the activations that they do within the event, and so for us to exceed their expectations, I spoke a little bit about the number of social media shares and things like that, the estimated TV audience, and there was some challenges with the event going the week or so before Christmas, but ultimately I think it really benefited the town and benefited us as a stop within there, is that we were really, like I said, one of Rogers' highlights for the year to date so far. So if there's any questions from council, I'm prepared to answer them.
Thank you. No questions, but a couple of comments. First of all, I cannot overemphasize what a great job was done by our staff on this. I know how much work this was. This was not an easy event to do, in spite of the fact that I appreciate Rogers came with a plan, and they're very good at their job as well. But the coordination and the preparation was incredible. I also want, as a councillor for the chamber committee, I just want to also reiterate the great job that my fellow directors and volunteers did for the kickoff event. It was amazing. It was a lot of fun. The weather that morning was very weird. It was a lot of fog, but it added to the atmosphere. It was great. And the other two things is tried very hard to find out if there were any complaints about this event, and I can't find any. So that's so unusual for for any event to go on without people complaining about something. It's just human nature, and that's okay. But this was done so well, and lastly, under budget. I don't know how you guys managed that, but congratulations to bringing this in under budget. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. Councillor Bauer.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. So, Mark, I just have a lot of accolades for you and your team, especially with Lauren. Lauren, you were there early, every day. Your presence was very much noted, and thank you for all your hard work from beginning dawn to dusk. You were really making sure that every event went off without a hitch. So thank you very much personally from me to you. I just would like to say that, yes, Mark, you did exceed my expectations. This was my first real big event that I've been involved with as a councillor, and all we had to do was show up. So thank you for making it so easy for us. I really enjoyed the partnerships that you had within the community, inviting the Chamber, the Lions, Magnum Cementing. It was really an opportunity for everyone to get involved. The kids absolutely loved it. And yes, you were right. It was unfortunate that it was at the end of the year for school, but it was fortunate too, because their enthusiasm was just overpouring, and they were just so happy to be there. It was just with logistical, we couldn't have Crother come because they have their dance, and I know that another couple of the schools would have liked to have been there as well. And I was so impressed with the way that you included Siksika and the teams for the Parade of Champions. That was a long line of teams to go through, and there was a lot of pride. So it doesn't surprise me that we had over 700 hits on our town page. People looking for, where is this town with all this fun and all this economic development. The videos that Rogers showed really highlighted our town and made it look good. So thank you to you and your team for going out and bringing this to our town, bringing it to our attention. I think it was money well spent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Deputy Mayor Corbeil.
Just one more thing, and kudos on not losing the flag.
And I'm still sorry for that, but it's partly James's fault too, because he delayed telling, he was going to delay telling you about the flag as a, go ahead, Mr. Thackeray.
Just remember, this is in public, so.
Yes, Your Worship. I understand Councillor Breaker is in possession of the flag.
Yes, he is. Councillor Breaker has informed me he will return it. I'm just not sure exactly when, but we will get it. Thank you, councillors, for your comments, and I echo all of them. I don't want to repeat too much, but it was a great job, and I know you all worked really hard. My only question mark is, have you heard anything from the motels and restaurants in town as far as what they might have noticed?
Through the chair, no, we haven't had much conversations with the hotels or with the businesses after the fact. The conversations we have had were with Rogers in preparation for this, and some of the numbers they generated, we had, I think, 250 or so hotel nights that were brought to the community. Obviously there was additional catering associated with this. The timing of the year, as we kind of spoke about, they also had their holiday wrap-up party. So those are some of the elements based on the timing of the year that were additional spends within our community that would have kind of not reflect some of the other stops just by the time of the year. And ultimately, I'm very pleased with how every department within the town stepped up, whether it was operations or fire department or Lauren and events, and that echoes back down to all the community associations, minor hockey in Chad and in Ringette to help really organize this event. And again, it just shows the strength of the community when we bring in an event like this, that everybody's wants to make it succeed. And I think it echoes all the way down from the small tykes to all the biggest businesses and council themselves. So.
Thank you, Mark, and I'm available if there's anyone looking for a skating clinic. I can help put one on for you at the arena as well. Thank you very much. And that brings us to item 6.3, telecommunication towers. Renee, are you speaking to this one? Good morning, or Justin, you are. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you, Council. So the next 4 items here are coming forward from Development Services. Oh, don't worry, I'm not giving the presentation. So a couple of these items are in response to Council asking us to look into it, and a couple are from us being proactive in terms of reviewing our fees. I think at the end of the day, our aim is to provide a high-quality service. We have some great staff that really look into some strong policies and also bylaws that help to guide this town and achieve the levels of a design and also beautification and regulation that kind of council looks to us for. So we believe that what we are proposing is a fair balance between the time spent from our staff and the policies and the bylaw work, and providing applicants a fair subsidy. So I want to thank my staff for all the wonderful work they've done. They've really worked hard the last month to do some research, and we look forward to council's direction.
Good morning. I'm here, I'm here this morning to speak to telecommunication tower antennas within Strathmore. We currently have 4 of them. This slide actually shows where the comparable municipalities are in the Calgary region, and which years they have adopted a telecommunications tower bylaw. These bylaws provide guidance for siting, design, architectural controls. They help to minimize visual and adverse land use impacts. So, pardon me, but not having them, say, next to residential or and in parks or discouraged areas. They call it preferred or discouraged areas. And it also strives to minimize the number of towers required for a certain area, so through principles of co-location and tower sharing. The municipalities also would seek public engagement with neighborhood groups and with the communities in relation to these towers. That's actually part of their bylaws as well. These are 2 tower examples I found. Obviously, the palm tree is the one we're going to go with. This is a map currently showing where our towers are and what they look like within the town of Strathmore. So the first tower here is up along 244 in the north, and is, I believe, on the egg grounds or near the egg grounds, if not right on them. And then Tower 2 is at the fire hall along George Freeman Trail. And then Tower 3 is in the industrial area. And there's actually another tower that has been put in that I believe came in the fall of 2019 in the industrial area in close proximity to Tower 3, which is part of the reason we are here today, is we would have liked to see that as a co-location rather than another tower. And that one has not been built yet, to my knowledge. And then Tower 4 is on the highway just outside of town to the west, along Highway 1. Currently, we, as in the development department, receive requests for installation of antenna towers from large telecommunication companies or their representatives, and they usually come in through development permit applications. Many of these companies, they're accustomed to working with municipalities, and so they ask us questions in regards to what policies or procedures we would have in place. Currently, our avenue is to follow City of Calgary guidelines, but obviously we're not the City of Calgary. We also haven't identified any proposed, any preferred rather locations or discouraged locations within town. There's some rather obvious ones, like we don't want to see anything in Kinsman Park perhaps. Those are things that we would want to identify through creating our own policy. And then we have this example of, these are some of the towers that are within Calgary. So this first tower is within the church steeple. I actually called them to make sure that there is a tower in there, and it's a TELUS tower. So they've enclosed the tower within the steeple to kind of hide it from view, so they're not just getting a tower out in the middle of a residential area. In this case, a commercial area. And then there's the tower to the south, or to the, sorry, the bottom of the slide is along Stony Trail. And near the Costco near Chestermere. And then this one is actually sited on a hill. It's away from any kind of residential development. They've looked at how they can provide that and give some design to it. And then this other one on the right-hand side is actually right in the middle of a commercial center. So hiding them within, say, the architectural design in this case might have been a better option, but this one definitely is in an appropriate location, I would say. These ones, so what we do when a permit comes in is we would conduct a review based on the policy. In this case, we have the City of Calgary policy. And we would conduct a detailed review on the proposal and advise the applicable co-location principles using the towers we already have. There's a set coverage that towers need to have in order to have 5G, I believe. And that is something that is coming down the pipe that is going to be soon proposed in Strathmore. I believe there's a broadband initiative that David can speak to in regards to what is currently happening. And this is why we don't want to have our town saturated with towers, obviously. We would look at existing town policies. In this case, we look at the land use bylaw and try to use good planning principles when we make these decisions. However, we don't have a comparable fee schedule to apply, so we're currently doing this work for free. And administration would recommend that council give consideration to the preparation of a telecommunication antenna bylaw and a fee schedule with direction to return to council in 2020.
Thank you very much for your report and your presentation. Are there any comments or questions from council? And Mr. Thackeray, are you just looking for direction from us then as far as possibly creating a bylaw and further presentation?
Through the chair, if that's your wish, you can't, you're in committee at the moment, but.
You're just looking for direction, you don't need a motion. Okay, so I think we're all in agreement with that. Thank you. Thank you again, Renee. Short-term rentals, is that what you have next? Perfect.
So you just hit the arrow key to change.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Let's start here. Short-term rentals do not have any development regulations within the land use bylaw. Administration does not see any merit in creating new regulations at this time. This past November, council requested administration investigate adding a requirement for a business license in order to operate an Airbnb and other home share properties. Short-term rentals have caused concern in tourist-based communities such as Canmore and Banff, where residential properties are being used and turned into full-time short-term rentals with large turnover of individuals that are renting them. Local government responses to short-term rentals have ranged from no regulation to completely banning them. Our primary concern is the safety of these short-term units. If the town is aware of a basement or a secondary suite being offered as a rental, we will ensure the unit has met all the planning and building code requirements. If not, we will enforce an illegal use under the land use bylaw to ensure only legal basements and secondary suites can be offered for rent. As of today, there are only 2 short-term rentals in Strathmore listed on Airbnb. The context of the community and supply of short-term rentals where such regulations may be implemented is an important consideration. The town of Strathmore's land use bylaw only regulates the use, not the user or specific tenure of an approved residential development. There are many different options and nuances under which the short-term rental market operates, and creating a standardized policy and bylaw will encompass all options, and it will be challenging. Administration recommends postponing any investigation into regulating short-term rentals in Strathmore at this time due to the limited number of opportunities we are currently aware of. Determining whether we need to consider regulating short-term rentals will require significant time and labor. The research process would start by getting a sense of the short-term rental market in the area. It's also important that we look at the local context indirectly related to the Airbnb regulation. Research would get more complicated once we start gathering data from local stakeholders, and administration recommends postponing any investigation of regulating them at this time.
Thank you very much for your report and presentation. Any questions or comments from councillors? Councillor Bauer?
Thank you, Worship.
James, did you?
No,
So, Councillor Bauer.
I just want to say thank you, Kathy, for the report. And if a resident notices that there's more than one person coming or going, or different vehicles coming and going in their neighborhood, and they do believe that there is a short-term rental in their community, who should they call?
They should call us, Planning and Development.
Planning and Development.
We have bylaw infraction door hangers that we could
Yep.
put on, and so we would notify the homeowner that they need to reach out to Planning and Development to sort things out.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. No other comments or questions? Thank you, Kathy, for your report. And that brings us to our next one, which is bench sign.
Sorry, this is my first time. I'm not familiar. The next item is bench signs. Administration is looking to council for direction to include bench signs in the land use bylaw. Currently, bench signs are not regulated within the land use bylaw. In 2004, bench signs were added to the land use bylaw to regulate rules and regulations regarding placement of signs and benches. When land use bylaw 1411 was adopted, bench signs were not included. We're unsure the reasoning behind this. In the current land use bylaw, a sign is defined as any visual medium, including its structure or other component parts, which is used or capable of being used on a permanent or temporary basis to identify or convey information or advertise or attract attention to a product, service, activity, person, institution, or business. Administration believes, based on this definition, a bench sign falls under this criteria. We enforce all kinds of benches in Strathmore. More predominantly, we see temporary signs on a weekly basis, freestanding signs and fascia signs with new development, and sandwich board signs, which are placed along the boulevards downtown, amongst all the other signs. Administration would like to add benches to the land use bylaw as a form of signage for the following reasons: as a means of managing signage proliferation, to enforce maintenance of the benches, to allow for operations to access the area around the benches in order to maintain the landscaping, and to ensure there is proper pedestrian access to all benches. This requirement would fall, the requirements would be enforced under the development permit. Here are a few examples for you. This is an example of proliferation of signs. 3 signs within one area, very close proximity. Under the conditions, we would recommend that 100 meters be between each bench sign. Here's an example of a couple deteriorated benches that are located in our downtown. This is just clip art, example of really bad landscaping. We don't want our benches to look like that. We want people to be able to use them. And this is an example of access to benches. This is on Park Lane Drive, I believe. There's a sidewalk on the northern side of the road, which is where you would access. This is the southern portion. Obviously, people are using it as a path, but this wouldn't be accessible for people in wheelchairs, walkers, etc. So we want to make sure that all the benches are accessible to the pedestrians, not just being used as signage. If council agrees, bench signs should be added to the land use bylaw. Administration would propose the following. A bench sign must be located in an approved location, which is benefit to the general public not, as an amenity, not solely for the purpose of signage. The exterior finish and appearance are in conformance with the surrounding land uses. There's a minimum setback of 3 meters from the curb or 1.5 from the property line, at the discretion of the Development Authority. A bench sign must be easily accessible to pedestrians with ground cover and landscaping. A bench sign must be located adjacent to a building, a public sidewalk, pedestrian trail, or an area where pedestrian foot traffic is expected. And there must be a minimum of 100 meters separation between other bench signs. We'll start by compiling an inventory of all benches within the town limits. Existing benches, we will give a 6-month period to comply with the bylaw. If benches comply, they would have 6 months to get an approved development permit. If a bench does not comply, ones on public land would be removed, and ones on private land, we would send a warning letter followed by fines. Administration recommends adding bench signs to the land use bylaw as a temporary sign renewed annually as per current sign regulations. This will allow administration to provide important oversight and guidance to the type of signs like the many other we currently regulate.
Thank you for your report. Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you, Your Worship. And thank you for that report, Kathy. A bench sign is obviously different than a memorial bench. I'm just wondering what the difference would be in our bylaw between like something that memorializes a person versus something that advertises a person.
Wow, I hadn't considered that. I was really thinking about the advertising signs. I think it would be beneficial to have a memorial sign perhaps go through the development process to ensure that they are located properly. But I would consider waiving a fine or a fee perhaps. I don't know if that would be applicable because I'm looking for an annual fee.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and what would the plan be for current benches? Like, for instance, like that picture you just showed us where there's 3 side by side. How would we decide whose bench gets to stay?
I think that we would, like I said in the final notes, if it did comply, we would just ask them to get a development permit in place.
Mm-hmm.
If it didn't comply and conform to the regulations that we agree upon, then we would ask them to, or we would have it removed if it was on public land. If it's on private land, we would send them a warning letter, and we do have applicable fines that we can use.
Okay, all right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You weren't thinking of a memorial bench for me, were you?
Well, there's that one along Thomas Drive, there's that,
Yeah.
and so, yeah. So
I know.
when we're-
I'm sorry. Councillor Sobel.
I didn't want to interrupt. Kathy, did you have something else to say? Kathy?
I was just going to say, another thing I noticed yesterday, I was driving up Wheatland Trail, and we have, I know Grays Park is not exactly flourishing right now, it's the middle of winter, but I found it very strange that all the benches along Wheatland Trail were facing Wheatland Trail as opposed to facing the park, which is very strange.
Yeah. So thank you, Your Worship, and I thank you very much for the report. I think it's an important issue, and for all the reasons that you've indicated, and I like the fact that you've touched on a lot of things. Obviously, there's more work to be done on this. The memorial benches are, I agree, I think is also something that should go in there, because there should be some rules and regulations as to where they go and how they're upkept. And that's one of the problems that we're having is a lot of these benches are just thrown in there for specific advertising purposes and left there to rot. And that's sort of does not do the town any good. So thank you. I just wanted to thank you for the report and all the work you've done on this.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. Deputy Mayor Corbeil.
Thank you, Your Worship. Hi, Kathy. Thank you very much for the report. I have a few questions. Like, there's a lot of times where you can have benches on both sides, like to face either like traffic or the things. And I don't want those kinds of things to be taken away where it could be used, especially in our downtown. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like almost like a double-sided bench?
Correct.
I would, for the 100 meters, I'd be a little bit leery on some things, just with those exceptions. I get with the 3, it looks a little much, but just something to keep in mind. The only other thing that I was thinking about is I would rather work with the people that have the benches out to conform to meet our bylaw, not necessarily go with the annual fee, because that's almost like, you know, we didn't have a dog license and now everybody has to pay for the previous years that they've had, kind of, sort of. Like, I don't know whether we could grandfather them in as long as they can conform and meet our expectations moving forward. I'm not so sure if I would want them to have to apply for the to be allowed to stay. I would just, like I said, I'd rather work more with the people that have them rather than telling them what they have to, like, working against, I guess. But that's just my thoughts.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Kathy, for your report. I'm going to have to respectfully disagree with my fellow councillor. I would like to see all the benches look the same and have conformity within the town. I think right now there's too many distractions and too many different colors and advertisements, and some of the benches are in good condition, bad condition. They're facing in, out. I really just want to see this taken care of. It's been an eyesore in the community for far too long, and I'm really glad that you are taking a look at this, because I think it's really positive. What I would like to know, though, is in your research, were you able to find out who is paying for these benches and where is the money going for these advertisements? So were you able to find someone central that is kind of right now controlling the advertising, or how the benches are being made and where they're being distributed?
Through the chair, I'm just asking you for direction this morning. I've just touched on my research, and that would be part of my research.
That would be part of it. Well, thank you. Then I very much support doing this, and I look forward to you coming to us in the future with more information.
I might be able to bring some answers to you, Councillor Bauer. A few years back, we had a lot of benches in all sorts of conditions downtown. So we tried to find a way as a council and administration to get those moved into other areas. So I think they looked after relocating a lot of them on their own, but we also wanted consistency, especially in that downtown area. But yeah, I think that's a good point you made. Councillor Peterson, and welcome.
Thank you, Worship. My apologies for being late. I do think that there is an issue with the 100-meter, depending on where it is in the community. So I think that generally there'll have to be some consideration for that kind of oversight. And I'm not a big fan of conformity, but I am a fan of oversight. And my question, though, in terms of those existing sorts of situations that our mayor just acknowledged, I know that in the past this has been contentious. Not recently, but in the past it's been highly contentious. And so I guess in the land use bylaw there's option. There is a option for appeal between the approval and the negation of a bench sign. So I think that that's really an important thing to acknowledge when we're communicating with our constituents that have these in existence already, out of respect and consideration.
Through the chair, absolutely. All development permits are subject to the
Sure.
appeal period.
And Your Worship, I'm prepared with a motion if. Oh, that's right. We're in.
Thank you. Councillor Sobel?
So just one quick comment. I think it's important to remember that bench signs are advertising, and I think it's important that we treat all of our businesses equally in regards to the cost they incur for advertising. So for a business to put up a sign on the highway through one of the companies that offer advertising, it costs money. So these people are paying money, yet whoever is using a bench sign incurs only the initial cost, and then it's free advertising for years and years and years. So I think it's important to put everybody on the same page. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. No other questions or comments? So, Mr. Thackeray, you just need direction again as far as bringing that forward as a later bylaw?
Yes, through the chair, I'd just like to recommend that should council wish to move forward any of these things, that Council rise and report and provide a resolution for direction for those things that they wish to advance. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Thackeray. And Jennifer, just to check in with you, we can do the rise and report after the last planning and development fees review?
Yes, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. So Councillor Peterson, if you'd be ready then with your motion, that would be tremendously appreciated. Our next one is planning and development fees review. Good morning. Back to you. How you been since I last saw you?
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Mayor Fuel, members of council. Kathy and myself are here this morning to present item 6.6, which is a high-level review of the development services fees that we're charging. These fees also include building inspection and slightly include engineering fees. Before we get into the bulk of the presentation, Kathy and I just want to start with the recommendations. So we're here requesting that council consider updating bylaw 1321 to reflect the staff time and resources that goes into our comprehensive development reviews, as well as a comparison with comparable municipalities in the region. So the purpose of the fees review is, as I mentioned, to fairly reflect the staff time and resources that goes into our application reviews. Further to that, we selected 3 municipalities in the region that we believe are comparable in size, location, and fees. Those are High River, Chestermere, and Okotoks. This project initiated in January of this year, and lastly, development services, the last time we adopted a comprehensive fee review was in 2013. We have considered fee reviews since then, but the last comprehensive review was 2013. So the methodology that Kathy and I used to propose these updates to the fees first started with step 1, which was determining the actual cost it costs the town to review an application. So here what we did was we determined the average staff wage that applies to an application review, and we multiplied that by the average number of staff hours that go into an application. For privacy reasons, we didn't include those figures in the report. Once we had the actual cost of the application review, we then compared that to the existing fee that we're charging. So when we compared those, that provided an estimate of how much the town is subsidizing each application, and we'll get into a few examples of these as we progress. Step 3, once we had that existing subsidy, we then proposed a new application fee to more fairly reflect the staff time and resources that goes into our reviews. We then took that new application fee and we compared it to the actual cost, which is step 1, and that gave us the new percentage that the town would be subsidizing should council approve that new application fee. And lastly, we then compared that new fee to the 3 comparable municipalities just to show how we would sit in the region. So the first example we'd like to run through is an example of a fee increase that we're proposing. So here we've selected change of use discretionary. The existing fee for change of use is $350, and based on how much it actually costs the town to review a change of use, we are currently subsidizing these applications by about 20%. We then proposed a new fee of $375 for this application, and we compared that again, and the new subsidy would be 11%. So the town would be increasing that fee, the subsidy goes down. On the right side of the screen, we then show comparisons to High River, Chestermere, and Okotoks. And we can elaborate on each of these if council wants. This is an example of a fee decrease. So land use zoning requests, we currently charge $100 for this. It doesn't cost the town $100 to produce these, so in the spirit of fairness, we're proposing a decrease here to $50. And then again, we have High River, Chestermere, and Okotoks on the right side of the screen showing comparables in the region. And last but not least, we have an example of a new fee. So this is a service that the town is currently providing that we aren't charging for. In this case, we've chosen premature inspection request. Kathy can elaborate on this. So currently there's no fee, which means we're providing this service at 100% subsidy. We're proposing a $200 fee for this. And again, we've compared to High River, Chestermere, and Okotoks on the right. This is my second last slide, our second last slide here, key considerations. So staff are proposing fee decreases in instances where they're justified. So this isn't just fee increases. This is a fair representation of the staff time and resources that goes into these applications. The second point that Kathy and I want to raise is that comparable municipalities were referenced. However, it's difficult to compare 100% of the time because for example, the development constraints in Strathmore might be different than the development constraints in High River. And so you can compare those fees, but you can't always align them 100%. And thirdly, Strathmore offers some of the lowest property taxes in the region for residential and non-residential. So with that, Kathy and I'd like to conclude. We can expand on any of the fees that were proposed. Thank you.
Thank you, Cameron. Councillor Sobel.
Thank you, and thank you for this report. One of my pet peeves in regards to increase in fees is that it's far too often based entirely on what other communities are doing. And I've expressed that concern in the past on a number of occasions. So I really appreciate the fact that you've made the comparison, but that the reason for any of the increases and decreases is based on facts on what this is costing us. So I just think this is an absolutely fantastic approach to this. I have one question, and that's in regards to secondary suite land use.
Okay, sure.
Proposed fee is 0?
I'm just gonna pull that up here.
Sure.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, so currently the land use process for that is $250. The
$2,250.
Sorry, $2,250. Council is considering removing the secondary suite land use process on April 1st, and that removing that land use process would decrease that fee to 0. Development permit and building permit fees will still apply for secondary suites.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel, and thank you for the clarification, Cameron. Former Deputy Mayor.
Thank you.
Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you. Yeah, and I guess I'll echo Councillor Sobel's. I appreciate the fact that this is like, rooted in, facts and it's, kind of based on data that you guys have assessed. One question I have though, I guess, is like, for instance, so anywhere where the fees were reduced, it's showing us that, we were subsidizing, for instance, say we take stripping and grading, that was $1,500, which we were subsidizing at 0, and we chopped it in half and we're still subsidizing it at 0. So those both can't be right.
Through the chair, yeah. So we were charging $1,500. The actual, it costs the town $750 to review that application. So by reducing it to $750, we're still breaking even.
Okay.
So if council did choose to subsidize stripping and grading, staff would recommend reducing the $750 to $650 perhaps, and then that would provide a subsidy there.
Yeah. Okay, and I guess, and I like Councillor Sobel, I hate the idea of increasing fees just because that's what other communities are charging, but also at the same time, I'm leery of charging more than what other communities are charging. And at the same time, I do believe, people should pay for, the services that they're incurring. And so I guess what I'm hoping for over the long term is that we can maybe come at it from both directions, so we can increase fees, if, because we're providing value, I believe, so we can increase fees, but maybe also we could look at ways that we can become more efficient so that we don't have to charge more than what other communities are charging, because it, not just, it doesn't kind of look very good, which that's kind of my least concern probably, but just the fact that we are doing something that is, costing more than other communities, and so either our processes are less efficient, or, other communities might be obviously subsidizing their own work. So I guess I would just hope that in the future we'll come at it from both directions rather than just, because anytime we increase fees, I don't have a problem increasing fees if we're providing increased value or value. So we just have to make sure that we're kind of making those things mesh, I guess. Thank you.
If I can just add to that, the one addition I would have here that is difficult to reflect in the table is for change of use, for example, for Chestermere, they would charge $300 for the application, and then they would have an additional advertising fee that applies on top of the 300.
Okay.
So the 300 is just a change of use, but then some municipalities structure it differently.
Yeah.
So 300, yes, that is their cost, but it might actually be more. And if you look at their fee schedules, it's sometimes hard to determine that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we understand your point.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Just to jump in really quickly to the chair, thank you, Councillor Montgomery. One thing that we're really looking at over the next 6 months as a department is trying to reduce development application, I guess, costs and the reasons for people coming forward. So one thing that we've been really looking at is trying to consolidate, for example, the low-density land use district. So instead of people having to come in to rezone from, say, R1N to R2 to R1S, you know, the structure or the shell of that land use district really is the same. So a lot of municipalities are going towards just trying to create increased certainty for the applicants, trying to reduce red tape, reduce risk and time. So certainly with those efficiencies that you talked about, we're absolutely looking at those to try and be more flexible, trying to react to the market more, and remove those undue processes. So we're certainly coming at it at a balanced approach to be able to reflect the market. So
Okay.
thank you for bringing that up.
Well, I really appreciate that. Yeah, because it is important for us to remember that we are competing essentially with other communities, you know, so it's, we have to include everything, obviously, what we charge for taxes plus for fees, so, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I certainly appreciate Mr. Rubello's comments with regards to the value-added service that the process has brought forward in terms of efficiency and speed and certainty. Well, one of the things when I look at this, if I'm a business person, if I'm a developer in this community, is the hit, you know, to look directly at that. And one of the things I guess that I would ask if there's been any consideration of looking at percentage increases and putting them in some kind of incremental process so that it doesn't hit people at a very, very difficult time in our economy currently, especially if any consideration been given to that. Thank you.
So through the chair, at this point, we didn't consider an incremental increase, but that is certainly something we can consider if council would like that. Yeah.
Thank you, Cameron. Councillor Bauer.
Almost forgot my name, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we all know who your favorite is. Thank you very much, Cameron, for your report. And Kathy, sorry. I do have a couple questions, and I really appreciate that you've provided a more balanced approach to looking at these fees. One thing that I'm always wondering is how we can have an advantage over other communities in terms of permits. And I was wondering, have you ever thought about packaging some of these fees so that someone can come to the town and say, okay, I want to develop this, and you know, can I know ahead of time how much is it going to cost me all in? And is there an advantage to doing that versus doing it, you know, one at a time? Is there even a savings that we could offer people that when they're coming to our community, if we're saying, well, if you want to have a business or move in or develop a home or whatever it might be, this is what we can offer you?
Yeah, so through the chair, that's a great point. We didn't consider packaging with this research so far, but I have seen other municipalities. So for example, if a developer comes in with a land use amendment that requires an area structure plan amendment too, you can do a package deal where if you pay for the area structure plan amendment, the land use is 50% off. So you're packaging those two to reduce fees. We didn't include that in this, but that can be included in the further research and review.
I would really like to see things like that highlighted so
Okay.
that developers know, and that may give us the edge over other municipalities. I do have a question. I really just don't understand what it means, and I'm wondering if it just means what it says. The application under Building Inspection Cost Center, it says occupancy prior to inspection. There's currently no fee, and the proposed fee is $1,000. So I'm just wondering, does that mean that somebody's going into a building without it being inspected?
Through the chair, yes, this is our, addresses our safety codes officer. Quite often, commercial businesses will go ahead and open prior to their occupancy permit being granted. And as you can see from the other municipalities, they have fees. I would consider these more of fines. This should not be happening. You shouldn't occupy a building before it's passed its final inspection.
Okay. And do we have any statistics as to how often that's been happening in our community?
I'm sorry, I don't have any numbers for you at this time, but there's certainly something I can bring to you with the report.
I'm purely just interested to know whether or not it is a problem or has been a problem in the past. Otherwise, I really see this as being a positive move forward, and thank you for presenting it to us today. The only thing I was thinking was you could have added a consultation piece to this. That was the only thing that I would have liked to have seen, was whether or not you reached out to business owners that have been in the community for a long time, and existing business owners, and then business owners that perhaps might have just applied for permits in the last 6 months to a year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Any other questions? Thank you very much, Cameron, and Kathy, for your report. Urgent business. Nothing in urgent business. Then I guess I'm looking for a motion to, we don't come out of committee first, we just go to in camera?
I would move to come out of committee.
Oh,
Your
yeah, we have
Worship.
to rise and report. Motion to come out of committee of the whole, all in favor? Motion passed.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Peterson.
Your Worship, I would, with council's openness, move that council provide direction to administration to include bench signs in the land use bylaw. Direction for administration to include bench signs in the land use bylaw.
There's a motion on the floor, all in favor? Oh. Did you have, you're good? Okay.
And Your Worship, while we're in this, one of the things in regards to the, we have requests for direction with regards to the change in fees. And regarding the development services fee schedule review. One of the things that I would very much like to think about in this, and perhaps it's a discussion for a future meeting, but I would like to discuss the proposed fees schedule regarding increases, where increases are over 40%, that we look at incremental processing in terms of this, but I would take direction from administration with regards to how to bring that forward.
May I ask Councillor Peterson through the chair, just some clarity or clarification? Is it your request for us to, when we review fees and charges, that anything in excess of 40% be
Staggered?
somehow incrementally applied, or some process to determine what that would look like? Or would you like us to do some research and report back of some proposals around that? Thank you.
Councillor Peterson?
Certainly, council hasn't had an opportunity to discuss this, Mr. Thackeray, but that is my concern. And I think that also in terms of, I know that there are lots of things that our staff currently do with regards to bundling land use bylaw and ASBs and so on. So I think that those things could come forward together, if council was of a mind to do that. But I'm not convinced that my council is in favor of that. But thank you for allowing me to discuss it.
James?
Just to Councillor Peterson for further clarification. So is it your intent, or is it my understanding that any fee in excess, is it council's desire or your proposal to put forward something that would suggest that any fee in excess of a 40% increase would come before council prior to any decision being rendered?
Ryan?
Your Worship, I think hearing what Councillor Peterson is saying, I never speak into this and I don't like it. Maybe what staff could do is put together a 5-year fee package indicating, where there's substantial fee increases, we would stagger that over a number of years. Then we could also build a 5-year inflation factor into fees so that we're not coming to council for big jumps in the future. So I think the direction we can give to Justin and his team would be, rather than present the 2021 fees, let's do 2021 through 2026. We can stagger out the big ones over a few years, and then everything else we can increase by 1.5 or 2% a year over that, so everyone gets certainty, and we're not looking to council for big jumps in the future, but rather just inflationary type jumps.
I think it's a great idea. Councillor Bauer?
Thank you, Worship. I would be in favor of that with respect to planning, development, and engineering costs, but not in respect to building inspection costs, because that's a safety issue. And with safety issues, I think that we should always be proactive and make sure that we're ensuring the safety of our community members as well as our staff.
All right. Anything? Thank you. Councillor Sobel?
I just find this is really getting confusing. But I like the idea of the 5-year plan. The problem I have right now is that we have to give direction to administration in the form of resolution, and I have no idea what that looks like at this point.
James?
If I may make a suggestion to council, I would ask that if council direct staff to provide a preliminary report on fee schedule issues, including a 5-year proposed strategy on how to deal with fees. I would also recommend that council, in line with other examples today, which have been very positive, look at a true cost recovery impact, so we're not subsidizing fees. So the fees would be at least, with regard to engineering, planning, development, would be based on actual cost and not a subsidized rate, so that we could propose options around that, and we could look at other fees in recreation and so forth. Thank you.
Councillor Peterson?
Your Worship, I would move that council provide direction to update the planning, development, building, inspection, engineering portions of the consolidated fees bylaw, number 13-21, to provide a preliminary report on the fee schedule issue, and to amend that, to do in the preliminary report, to look at amendments with a mind to true cost recovery. Thank you, Worship. In speaking to the motion, I would leave the term 3 to 5 years to people who know much better than I do. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor? Motion passed. I think that is... No. Sorry, Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that council provide direction to administration on the creation of a telecommunications tower bylaw.
All right, there's a motion on the floor. All in favor? No?
Just a question.
Yep.
To provide direction? The council provide direction to administration?
On the creation. So they're going to create one. We don't have one.
But that's all it is.
Oh, Jen?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, thank you, Worship. The motion, if council's providing direction, we need to know what direction that is. Okay. Perhaps the direction could be
to create.
To create a, yes.
No direction, just to create.
Can I ask a question,
Yes,
please?
Councillor Montgomery.
And Renee, can I ask you a question, please? if there was a, like in keeping with the idea that there should be, you know, like a limited number of towers in town, is there any thought to where they would be on public land, like the town being the owner, similar to like the tower we have west of town, and then we could sell space on that tower?
Through the chair, that is actually a question for David, that he is initiating has a broadband initiative coming through. I'm not sure where those towers would be proposed to be located, but that's something we would be looking at, would be if we own those towers and they were on our land, if we can have co-location principles on them rather than having them on private land.
Okay, so, well, as long as it's on your radar, I guess, then.
Okay, yes.
Okay.
Ryan?
Yeah, Your Worship. Thanks for that. It's a chance to speak of a good initiative. We are already now collecting lease payments for a co-location on our tower. What Renee and David will have to work at is to make sure that the bylaw isn't using municipal powers to force people to co-locate on our towers. That's unfairly competing with business, but instead just to enforce the principles of co-location and whoever you may co-locate on, and where it makes most sense to locate on a town facility, then we can lease that space. So it's a little bit of a needle we have to thread there so that we're not bullying people or pushing people into locating with us, but still pushing people at least into co-locating with whomever. But yeah, it's a nice small revenue opportunity, and any money we can make for services we're already providing is a positive.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor? Oh, no,
Your
sorry,
Worship,
Councillor Slobo.
Could I have the motion reread, please?
Yes.
I can do it the right way, is that what you're asking? The council ask administration to create a telecommunications tower bylaw.
I would just, if you wouldn't mind just changing the ask to direct, I think it would be more specific to.
Thank you, Your Worship. The council direct administration to create a telecommunications tower bylaw.
We have a motion on the floor. All in favor? Motion passed. Is that the last motion we need to make?
Motion to go in camera, Your Worship.
There's a motion on the floor?
Actually,
Yeah.
yes, thank you. That's good.
Motion, there's a, all in favor?